Hello and welcome to a thoughtful Thursday episode of the 21st Century Work Life podcast. If you're a regular listener, you might know that every now and then I release some of these solo episodes which either have thoughts that I really need to share, something that's happened or whatever, or in the case of this one, I've had a conversation with a future guest, so a guest for a future episode, and I thought this is quite timely and listeners might enjoy this. So that's the case today. I am joined by Nacho Rodriguez, who's the founder of Nomad City. And by the way, my name is Pilar Orti. I'm the director of Virtual, Not Distant. We're a London-based company, as in our registered address is in London. And we work with managers, their teams and organizations, helping them transition to an office-optional approach. So you can find everything out about us over at virtualnotdistant.com. Now, the reason why I was speaking to Nacho was I really like this line they have when on their homepage, nomadcity.org, which says, it's about loving where we work versus living where we work. So from that, I thought, well, that's very suitable for an episode on remote work for social change. So I was speaking to him about that, and bits of that will be included in a future episode. But as I asked him to describe the conference, I thought this is also really interesting for listeners. It will be too much and too off topic to put in the whole episode on social change, but I think listeners will really enjoy this. So here we go. Let's have a listen to our guest on today's episode. Thank you, Nacho. Well, I'm delighted to be talking to Nacho Rodriguez, the founder of Nomad City, who I actually met in London. So it's lovely to speak to you from Gran Canaria.
Gran Canaria, correct.
And Nacho, I really wanted to introduce you to our listeners, some of whom will probably already know you, have met you, have heard of you. But I wanted to bring you in to talk to us about that wonderful conference that you have been running now for how many years?
It's going to be the fourth edition, so 4 years already. Yeah. So I guess that, considering the remote work is not as old, or at least, the big now movement, I guess we're already a bit old. I don't know, it feels old.
I think you're right. I think you're definitely a pioneer there. And I have to say that the 4 years in this sphere it's like 4 decades, the speed at which this stuff's happened. So tell us a bit about then, very interesting then, the drive behind the conference, why you set it up, but also why you've continued to run it.
All right. Well, long story short, we started this event 4 years ago as an excuse to promote the destination, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, and in particular the Canary Islands, for remote workers. As you know, the Canary Islands have been known for decades as a tourism destination, but for about 5-6 years, it's become more and more a hub for remote workers and digital nomads. And I personally got in touch with this movement 5 years ago when we opened our co-working space here in Las Palmas. And we started receiving a lot of remote workers, digital nomads that wanted to work from our space. And for me, it was a great discovery and sort of like the part that I was missing in my hometown. I was born and raised in Las Palmas, but I had the possibility to travel and study abroad and also work abroad for many years. And so the point where I decided to come back to my hometown. And this connection to an international community of workers with very interesting backgrounds and projects was the piece that I was missing. And for us, it was an opportunity, and we decided to find a way to speed up this process. And that's how actually the conference started 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And before we go as to how it's evolved, because I think that's also very interesting, you were saying about the Canary Islands promoting themselves as a destination for remote workers. This is something also I came across probably around the time you're saying, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, basically, we see a lot of value in remote work for our community, and there's different approaches to this. Obviously, we started learning first only about digital nomads. So digital nomads defined as those remote workers who travel intensively. And for us, it was already a very valuable tourist in a way, because digital nomads normally get involved in the local community. They don't. They spend their time and their money in town in a very sustainable way compared to what traditional tourism offers, right? Which is normally big hotels, chains, tour operators, and actually the money and the value doesn't stay in the local community. Normally goes somewhere else, right? So that was the first value that we saw. But also, as we start learning more and more about the movement, we saw that also they brought knowledge, they brought opportunities, and it was very valuable to our community as some of the problems we have locally, it's unemployment. The unemployment rate under 25, it's huge in the Canaries. It's almost 50%. So for us, it was also an opportunity to teach and to connect them to the locals, for them to understand the possibilities that they had to also work remotely from the Canary Islands. So, it's been approached in several ways.
Wonderful. And so how is the conference contributing, complementing, contrasting this?
Okay, well, the conference has evolved a lot over the last 4 years, and obviously because we have also learned a lot over the last 4 years. We started this conference, and that's where the branding comes from, as a conference focused on digital nomads, right? And that's how we came across, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria being the nomad city, right? And the content around Nomad City number one was very focused on digital nomadism. So being able to travel and work remotely, or make this travel sustainable in the long term, because you had some sort of income, right? But as we moved along, we learned what was happening also in the corporate world, and how this was very beneficial also for companies, right? And we started switching the content and making the umbrella of the content much larger. So digital nomadism is only a very small part of the conference that we have today, but we talk about many other aspects of remote work.
Good. So give us a little bit of a flavor then of the program, just so we know, and also the kind of, well, you've already mentioned the kind of people, how you are supporting the different kinds of remote workers. Because as you're saying, at the beginning, there was one type of remote worker that we thought of, and now there's just, soon we won't be able to talk about remote workers because there's such diversity.
We are very inclusive. So as I mentioned before, we do have, for this year, the event has 4 parts. The first part, which is an unofficial event that we are finishing to set up, it's a roundtable around the topic of economic development. We are going to have a couple of really experienced remote work advocates around the topic of economic development, and basically we have prepared a roundtable with executives and also government officials of the Canary Islands to first learn what they are doing and what experiences they have from other locations around the world, and then debate and discuss how can we improve our strategy in the Canary Islands to get the most out of remote work, right? So that's going to be the very first event that's going to be happening on November 6th. On November 7th, we start the workshops. Workshops are 1 hour long sessions where the mentors get deep into different topics. And for the workshops, we have prepared actually 2 different tracks. One of the tracks is more focused on freelance work. So those who are freelancing and want to do it remotely. And another track more focused on teams and companies. And on Thursday, November 7th, we have in total, I think it's 8 different workshops on each track, so for a total of 16. Then we move on to November 8th, which is the main conference day, only one track. And here we cover topics of just such as the state of remote work in 2019, what's onboarding like for a company like Automatic. We have a lot of discussion panels. One of them is challenges and advantages of growing the remote business. We're also talking about the future of the gig economy. We are talking about obviously remote communication and collaboration, which is a very important aspect. We have Matthew from Basecamp pitching about, what is it like to work for Basecamp. So it's very diverse. And we finished the event this year with a very special event that we have called the Summit. The Summit, it's an invitation-only event. It's actually an unconference because the content is prepared on the spot. It's limited to a group of 60 remote work advocates. And during the Summit, we are going to have discussions at a much higher level. So we're talking about a group of 60 remote work advocates that have at least 2 or 3 years of experience either leading, consulting, or working around this topic, so we can actually speed up the knowledge, share experiences, and come out of the conference with a lot of value, right?
And I am gutted to be missing that because that's one of the things that I'm missing in any kind of event, especially at the moment around remote work and as a broad concept, is those high level discussions and those discussions where we can really stop thinking about the detail of the how-to every day and actually be able to dream, to challenge, to provoke, to be pessimistic, to be optimistic without really worrying about the how-to. I love the think tank. I think that's an amazing addition to the conference this year.
Yeah, well, the reason for this is that we have experienced after the previous events that the group of advocates and mentors and speakers that attended the conference, as we like to build the conference as a very connecting event in a way, because we have a lot of meetups and activities around the conference where people get to know each other very well and exchange knowledge and sort of like have that non-virtual connection that it's also very important, at least once a year. We also thought that we needed to have a space for them to really learn more, discuss more, and get deeper into the topic, right? And this is the reason why we've prepared for the first time the summit, which we are really looking forward to.
Yeah, and someone like me who finds it very hard to network informally would really benefit from that, because that's where I grow. It's in conversations that are framed, that are about something I love, that I want to discuss, rather than the more informal and spontaneous conversations, which I have so much trouble with sometimes. So I can see on so many levels. Wonderful. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Well, yes, exactly. I'm really looking forward to the experience of the summit, particularly because the way it's structured, it's called unconference. Sometimes they call it also the bar camp methodology. Mm-hmm. We're gonna bring out topics. We're gonna vote those topics, and we're gonna prepare different discussion groups. But the interesting side of this is that we have a sort of like a rule called happy feet. So we allow everyone who is participating in those discussions, if at some point they feel that they cannot add any value to it, or it's not adding enough value to themselves, they can stand up and walk to a different group and join a different conversation. So this way we provide everyone with outstanding value and with something that they are actually looking for, because it's really hard to figure out in advance what everyone is looking for in terms of content and discussions, right? But with this methodology, I think it's going to be very interesting, and everyone is going to walk out with a lot of value.
that also what that does, allowing people to move around, is you are in the place where you can contribute most or where you can get the most out of. And it really brings back that participants' accountability and responsibility also for making it work for themselves as well as for everyone else. So I think it's great. It's such a great structure. And then looking at, so when I was looking through your stuff, I saw that some of, and tell me if I misinterpreted this, that you're also being a broker between people who are looking for remote work and hearing you speak. I would imagine some locals also. You're being the broker between them and some of the companies also during the event?
Correct. This is something that we beta tested last year and last edition. And it actually worked out really well. We had a couple of success stories. Basically, what we've done is prepare what we call a remote job fair. And it's very simple. Basically, we've prepared with a specialist on human resources a survey. So basically, we asked any participants, all the information about their curriculum, the knowledge, the skills, what they are, what kind of job or position they're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. We build a database with all the people who are willing to look for a remote job. And since we have a broad spectrum of companies participating in the conference that they are remote friendly, we basically give them a filtered selection of those candidates in order to try to match them with the positions that they have available. That was very successful last year. We have a couple of success stories. It's also for us very useful to comply with one of our motivations, which is find opportunities to locals that are looking for a remote job. But it's not limited to locals, obviously. It's for everyone who is participating in any way in the conference who is looking for a remote opportunity.
Good. So given that today it's the 16th of October, and because we run the podcast, we can do what we want. So I can release this episode tomorrow, which will be great. Given that, is there anything you want to say maybe to someone who hadn't heard of the conference before and is thinking, actually, I might still have time to go over to Gran Canaria? Can you tell us the dates and any logistics?
Yeah, well, we encourage all attendees to join us for a few days, actually, before the conference officially starts on November 7th. So a lot of people will be arriving in town on November 4, 5, and 5th. And we encourage them to stay until November 10th, which is the day after the conference. Again, there's an unofficial agenda of events and meetups, etc., during the whole week, so that people can actually really have time to get to know each other, exchange, have conversations, also work remotely, because many of the attendees are already working remotely, and also enjoy the city, as we think it's a great place to be based when you have flexibility to work from anywhere. And that has proven to be very successful. We try to differentiate our event to the traditional conferences where you go and you basically share business cards, hear someone speak and then walk out. We like to make this event very participative. Even during the keynotes and the workshops, we encourage all the audience to participate, ask questions, etc. We have a couple of tools that we use for this. And yeah, we basically want everyone to enjoy a full week in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria during the conference.
Wonderful. So are there still tickets left, Nacho?
There are still tickets left. We are expecting for this edition around 300 attendees. And also we are, even though we encourage everyone to come physically, because we think that at least once a year people need to connect at a personal level, we also broadcast and prepare all the audiovisual materials from all the keynotes and the workshops, and it will be online available after the conference. And it's also a possibility for those that can't attend personally to really get all the value of the content that we prepare for it.
Wonderful. So apart from nomadcity.org, anyone who wants to check this out, the official dates are 7th to 9th of November, and we are in the year 2019. And then, of course, as Nacho said, to get the most out of the event, you're very welcome to be around, and there will be other people around during that whole week. So apart from that URL, is there anywhere else that I should send people who are interested in this or future editions?
Well, we encourage everyone to connect with our community on LinkedIn. It's very easy to find us, Nomad City, on LinkedIn. We have a official page there where we post all the announcements. We will be posting a lot of the outcome of the current edition after it finishes, and we'll be also announcing the next year's edition, which is also going to happen the first week of November 2020.
Very good. Well, Nacho, and are you active in any social platform that you might want listeners to hook up with you?
Yeah, obviously Twitter. It's one of them. You can find me under IGRCO, and also on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me, feel free to tag me. I'm Ignacio Rodriguez.
Excellent. We'll put links in the show notes. Well, this has been a delightful, Nacho, and congratulations. This sounds like something that is very important and incredibly thought through, and has obviously evolved as the world of work has evolved. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Pilar, for having us.
Well, I hope that was entertaining, informational, inspirational, for whatever reasons you listen to podcasts, and especially for the very reason that you have tuned in today. So just to say thank you very much for listening. You can subscribe to this show, the 21st Century Work Life podcast. I wish I'd given it a shorter title when we started, but that was over 5 years ago, I think now. Or four. I think it's 4. It will be 5 soon. So do subscribe if you have a podcast app. If you can't find anywhere to subscribe, let us know. Head over to virtualnotdistant.com. We'll help you. And if you prefer Twitter for short communications, then @PilarOrti is my Twitter handle. We also have another show, Management Cafe, which is all about the general aspects of management and leadership in organizations. And it looks at co-located teams as well as remote. And there's not many episodes, but Management Cafe. And beyond that, if you want to sign up to our newsletter, virtualnotdistant.com. I've been Pilar Orti. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thank you for listening and enjoy.